Okay, good evening, one and all. So today's topic is the art of non-violence. So initially, Louis was asking me what kind of topic I'm going to share for the this session. So end of last year, there's a lot of news on stabbing. Religious leader gonna stab, or there's some teen want to plan to stab somebody. So lots of violence, not just locally, but also overseas. Lots of wars going on and so on. So probably this is the best time, I think, appropriate time to talk about non-violence. How should Buddhists handle this non-violence or violence with regard to the scripture? So before we start, first and foremost, I wish everyone a happy new year, 2025. So hopefully this new year, not too much violence lah. Okay, next slide. Okay, so in the poster, Louis already gave one Dhammapada quote, but this Ovada Patimokkha is also part of the Dhammapada, but every new and full moon, the monks will actually chant this. After the monks recite the precepts, when they gather together, recite the precepts, at the end, they will chant this Ovada Patimokkha. So it's to remind us the essence of the teachings. So the essence of the teachings, I'll just briefly read. Patient forbearance is the highest austerity. So no matter how people tekan you or what, abuse, the real patience is the real austerity. It's not going through the physical kind of torture. It's more on the mental patience. Unbinding is highest. That's what the Buddha say. Yeah? Unbinding means liberation. He is no monk who harms another. So a monastic shouldn't harm anybody. By right, shouldn't harm anybody. Nor a contemplative, he who oppresses another. So a person who truly seeks the truth, go into this spiritual path, shouldn't oppress or harm anybody. So later on in the next few sessions, we might see more cases, case studies, not just modern day case studies, but also in the Buddha's time, probably cases of violence. Okay, next. Okay, this is the continuation of this Ovada Patimokkha. The non-doing of all evil, the performance of what is skillful, the cleansing of one's own mind. This is the Buddha's teaching. So this is the popular quote. I think most people have heard it. Avoid evil, do all the good, purify the mind. So like I mentioned probably in other classes, I'm not too happy with the word evil. The proper term should be unwholesome. Unwholesome, either thoughts, speech, or acts. So evil, sometimes people will think, I never harm anybody, I just like to daydream and fantasize. So the mind creating a lot of greed, but never harm anybody, but that is still considered unwholesome. So the non-doing of unwholesome, we call akusala. So that is actually the more refined level of practice. Then do what is skillful, what is wholesome, then that's how we slowly purify the mind. Okay, then the last one, not reviling, not injuring, restraint in line with the monastic code, moderation in food, dwelling in seclusion, devotion to the heightened mind. This is the Buddha's teaching. So there's a lot of non-violence being mentioned here. So the first paragraph talks about not harming, not oppressing. Then now some are not reviling, not injuring. So emphasize a lot, especially the injuring part. Then they mention restraint in line with the monastic code. So in one of the lessons, we'll talk more on the ethics and the monastic code. Moderation in food. So if a person let's say, indulge in the senses, the greed and anger will increase also. There's kind of reciprocation. So when there's greed and anger, there's a higher chance of like harming other people. So we talk about moderation in food. So whatever you makan, whatever you eat, you need to restrain. Whatever you see, whatever you hear, whatever you think, also need to have this moderation, need some restraint. So this is the we call it higher level stuff. And devotion to heightened mind, seclusion. Okay, next. Okay, so we talk about despite being the teaching so ideal, the summary looks like perfect. Don't harm anybody, purify the mind, don't do evil. But yet, how come Buddhism, not the teachings, but the people, more on the people, the people who practice the path, the practitioners, still have issues. So the Buddha mentioned there are 5 downward leading qualities tend to the confusion and disappearance of the true Dhamma, which 5. So any monk, nun, layman, lay women, if they do not respect the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, do not respect the training, do not respect the concentration. So training would be the rules and the precepts, and the concentration would be the meditation. So these are the 5 things if people do not respect, and this will lead to the downfall of the religion. So on the right of the page, there's a link to a short video. So you can click and you lead to a link to this YouTube video. So it's just a short look. Some people may not be aware of the so-called violence going on, especially in the Buddhist community. But Louis can click the link. Maybe some people are aware, but for those who are not aware, it's good to know that such things going on.
Can you click play?
Enlarge the screen.
Mình phải trong ở đó làm lại Việt Nam nâng bua, ta stuck vào xong hai cầm chia com hai bua, xong hai cầm chia nâng riêng, hai cầm chia com từng ở bên.
Okay, so we can stop the share. Okay. Okay, so this is what's going on in the world. Lots of this everywhere. Can be a small community, large community. Sometimes there will be a whole spectrum of different people. Maybe can continue the share screen to the PowerPoint. So we'll be talking more on this issue. So even though we talk about root cause, being the degeneration of the Dhamma and the teachings. The next slide. Okay, so I started off with something a bit anticlimactic. So now we're going to talk about the baseline teachings. So I do not know the audience here. Some people may be new to Buddhism. So we're going to give like kind of like a brief overview. The teachings itself teaches about non-violence. So these are the core teachings, standard Four Noble Truths. So all Buddhist schools will actually teach this Four Noble Truths. This is actually the foundation of Buddhism. So the Four Noble Truths are as in written in the screen. The first one is suffering. Second one, cause of suffering, which is our desire or craving. And because we have excessive greed or anger, then it will lead to all these unnecessary conflicts. Then the third one, cessation of suffering. And the fourth one, Noble Eightfold Path leading to cessation of suffering. So the Four Noble Truths is a very important kind of format. The first two kind of talks about the problem. The number two talks about identifying the cause of the problem. Number three talks about there is a solution and the problem can be solved. And the fourth Noble Truth talks about the methodology, how to solve the problem. So it's a complete kind of package. So the Buddha didn't just say, okay, life is suffering and he just walk off. It's not pessimistic kind of teaching. It's troubleshooting kind of format. Okay, next. Okay, so the first Noble Truth, that is suffering, or some people translate as stress. So it talks about the different types of suffering or stress. So stress is Ajahn Thanisaro's translation. So most people will use suffering or dissatisfaction or unsatisfactoriness. You just get the rough idea. Okay, so we have in the Sri Lankan and the Burmese tradition, they say the 8 types of suffering, or in other Buddhist tradition also 8 types of suffering: birth, aging, sickness, death. So in the Thai tradition, they only have 7. They don't want to mention sickness. Maybe they don't want to get sick. So anyway, there's birth, aging, sickness, death, which is not comfortable, not good. Then we talk about the next 4, more on the mental. Association with unbeloved is stressful. Separation from the loved one is stressful. Not getting what is wanted is stressful. In short, the 5 clinging aggregates are stressful. So the vicissitudes of life, all the ups and downs, especially down here, they mention all the downs, because there's up, there's down also. Why we face all this unpleasantness or this dissatisfaction is because we have these 5 clinging aggregates. So the 5 clinging aggregates are the mental cognitive functions that kind of perceive the whole world. And the totality of our experience, why we experience aging, why we experience people's separation from us. And it's because of the observer and this cognition. So we call this the 5 clinging aggregates. Anybody here do not know what the 5 clinging aggregates? So again, a quick brief run through the next slide. Does it mention? Okay. So the 5 clinging aggregates is not your primary school living education aggregates. This one is the one in blue boxes on top. So these are the 5 aggregates. You have form, then the second aggregate feeling, the third one perception, fourth one mental formations, and the fifth one consciousness. So these 5 things are actually, we use it all the time to perceive or cognize all the objects. Okay, so I'm going to give the definition. It can be split into 2. So if you look at the top orange rectangles, you see body and mind. I prefer the term matter, mind and matter instead of mind and body. Okay, so for rupa or form, is only one of the aggregate. Then the rest of the aggregates, you have feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. So these are the mental aspect. So total there's 5. So form is actually defined as the 4 elements: earth, fire, wind, water. So the body itself, for example, our own body, Because down here, a lot of people like to interpret, or some groups of people interpret as body. Then they restrict to just your physical body, right? So your body have, let's say, the skin, the bones, anything solid, we call it the earth element. Then the liquid element, the water would be your saliva, the blood, the sweat, and so on. Then the wind element would be the gaseous parts of the body, and the fire would be the temperature, the heat. So the four elements are in pre-Buddhist or even Buddhist teaching, they also talk about the whole universe being made of the four elements. So if you look at your electronic device right in front of you, it generates heat, right? So that's actually the heat element, the fire element. It's quite solid, it's quite hard. So that is the earth element. Yes, moisture also, water vapor. So there's a water element. Then probably there's movement, so we call it wind element. So everything around us is made of the four elements. It doesn't have to be the physical body. So the form or matter can be anything in the universe. Okay, so the matter itself, no suffering. It's actually the mental aspect that will kind of detect or perceive it as suffering. So the next aggregate, we call it feeling. So feeling is defined as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So this is called feeling. So if let's say you feel your body, sometimes there might be pleasant sensation or very shock, very nice, very comfortable. Sometimes there might be unpleasant sensation, very painful. There's some tension or very aching, right? So there's unpleasant feelings. So you have neutral sensations. You don't feel anything pleasant or unpleasant. So we have all these kinds of feelings. And then the next one is called perception. So perception is basically whatever things you learned before and the memories you have, the mind try to make sense of what you're trying to cognize right now. So let's say if you look at the words here, can you read the words? Can you read the words on the screen? Can, right? If you can read means because you've learned the words before. Could be in primary school or secondary school, in your early days or at home. So somebody taught you the words, and then based on your memory, you are able to perceive and understand the word. So we call it perception. Then the next one, mental formations. So mental formations is actually the moment the thought is being formed. So that's called mental formations. So it can be intentional. You can deliberately generate the intention, or it can be habitual. So that means if you do nothing, then some thoughts are formed on its own. So these are habitual. Okay, then the last one is consciousness. Consciousness means your awareness. So we have this thing called the sixth sense based consciousness, your eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So if you are looking with your eyes, that means you're paying attention with your eyes. So we call this eye consciousness. If you are paying attention to what I'm saying, then you're using your ear consciousness, so on and so forth. So we have the body, your nervous system can feel the touch, and the taste, which is your tongue, the tongue consciousness, then your nose, the smells, and the mind. So in science, in the circular science setting, in primary school science, they'll teach you 5 senses. So if you tell a Western scientist 6th sense, they'll think the 6th sense means ESP, extrasensory perception. So actually, no. So in Buddhism, the 6th sense here refers to your thinking. Thinking. So whatever you imagine, whatever you recall in the past, whatever's happening in your mind, only you can experience it. So that's your 6th sense door. So total, we have the 6th sense consciousness. So we'll talk more on this in the future lessons. So in short, the 5 aggregates, you need to understand this first before we move on. So for example, if you look at the screen right now, all 5 aggregates are working. So how does it work? First, you need your eye organ. You depend on the external form, which is your screen, the pictures and the words. Then eye consciousness arises. That means your attention arises. And once your attention arises, what happens is all these five is like 5 in 1. And when you pay attention, then you have this thing called, we call it mental formation. The thoughts are formed. The attention goes to that object. And then you have this thing called feelings, contact and feeling. That means you find the screen, the pictures, is it pleasant or unpleasant looking? Is it nice? The font, is it nice? The color, is it nice or not nice? So you have feelings. And then you have perception. You're able to discern. This is a blue color, this is a red color, this is a white color. So we call this perception. And then you have form. So form are the 4 elements, right? We talked about the earth, fire, wind, water earlier. So all these are 5 in 1. So wherever your attention goes, all 5 will be there. So these are the 5 aggregates, 5 clinging aggregates. So if you're hearing the same thing, if you're touching a seat, also the same thing, and you perceive, this is called a seat, what kind of chair you're sitting, or what kind of cushion you're sitting, it's called perception, whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, the hardness or softness, all these are the elements. So all these are together. So we call these clinging aggregates because once you cling, the mind is like super glue. You cling on it, sometimes a bit hard to let go. So like some people, for example, we talk about some worst case scenarios, one end of the spectrum. For example, maybe some drug addicts or gambling addicts. They pay attention to that activity and they hook to it. So it's a clinging because of this mind, the mental kind of addiction. So clinging means addiction. Or let's say you have certain favorite, K-drama. You watch one episode, cannot stop. Then you keep on binge watching second episode. We call this clinging. Because you find the show very nice, right? Has some pleasant feeling. And you cling. So the mind will just go on and on and on. So it's not just for pleasant feeling, but also sometimes for unpleasant feeling. Like for example, who have ever been upset the whole day before? Or who is grumpy or angry the whole day? So it's unpleasant, but they're still clinging. So the mind has this kind of addiction issues. Okay, so this is called the problem, 5 clinging aggregates. So when we talk about the 8 types of suffering earlier, separation from loved one is suffering, for example. So maybe some people, their loved one passed away, they can get upset or depressed the whole day. Or they go on for weeks or months. Then the worst case scenario, some even do some silly things. So we call this clinging aggregates. Because of these 5 clinging aggregates, whatever emotion can be unwholesome kind of emotion, it will also cling onto them. Okay, next slide. Any questions so far? All okay, I can follow. If too chim, you have to stop me. Okay, then the second noble truth talks about the cause of suffering. So what causes this, what fuels the clinging? So we call this craving. So we have 3 types of craving. Craving for sensuality, craving for becoming, craving for non-becoming. So this one is taught in the first sermon of the Buddha. Kama tanha, bhava tanha, vibhava tanha. 3 types of craving. So craving for sensuality means whatever thing in your senses that very shook one, you want some more. For example, the nice food you have, the nice travel, nice shopping, nice entertainment, the mind wants some more, So this one will appear. Also, let's say people who meditate, you sit down quiet, and all these nice fantasies come up. We call this craving for sensuality. That means the mind is addicted to this sensuality, this entertainment. Then the second one, craving for becoming. Craving for becoming means you crave for a certain type of existence. So it could be a desire realm existence, form or formless existence. So the form and formless existence would be those who enter states of concentration. So if some people enter, oh, my meditation very calm, very short, I like it. I want that peace to be there forever. So it's called craving for becoming. Craving for becoming in a sensual sense would be, let's say, people who don't want to get sick. I want to be healthy forever. I want to live forever. I want to do well forever. So it's in the sensual kind of settings, you want things to be permanent. So we call this craving for becoming. You like the status quo. And the last one, craving for non-becoming, is basically you want to get rid, you want to destroy. So basically anything that you don't like, anything that's you're averse to, and we call it craving for non-becoming. So these are the 3 types of craving. Okay, next. Okay, so the third noble truth would be the problem can be solved. There's an end to the problem. So the Buddha defined it as cessation of stress means failing, cessation, renunciation, relinquishment, release, letting go of craving. So basically, if you reduce craving, you let go of craving, you're working towards the third noble truth. So how to let go? So very easy to say. Sometimes you see people in trouble or people worry, then you just tell them, let go lah. Let go lah. Right? Very easy, right? Like very easy to say. So the letting go is a tedious process. It's a eight-part process. So we call it the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, so next slide. So this is the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the fourth noble truth. So the methodology to overcome this clinging to this unhappiness and the suffering is actually this Noble Eightfold Path. So you have all this right stuff, right view, right resolve, right speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. So 8 things. So it's represented by a wheel. So all these 8 spokes are connected. So some people think, I want to have peace of mind or I want happiness. So I just sit and meditate. But once I get out of meditation, I start to curse and swear, start to scold people and do all kinds of nasty things. So no, you cannot overcome suffering like that. So this Noble Eightfold Path is a package. It's a package. So it's like interconnected, like this wheel here. So if you turn one spoke, all the 8 should move together. All the 8 should move together. So one common example I give is, so this is regarding mental health, right? So we talk about physical health, for example, physical fitness. Some people like to go to the gym to exercise or go to the sports stadium to exercise. So they exercise. So after they finish exercising, can be 1 hour or so, then they go back and they start binging on junk food, or oily stuff, or the crackers and junk food, and maybe they smoke and drink and do all kinds of unhealthy habits. Do you think this will contribute to their overall health? If they take junk food, will it contribute to their overall health? Make them healthier? No, right? So same thing. This Noble Eightfold Path, you need to do all 8. is a package. So you need to have proper behavior also. Right view, right resolve, speech, action, livelihood, and everything. So I'm going to go through briefly all these 8 parts. Okay, so the next slide. Yeah, so it can be divided into 3 portions. So the Noble Eightfold Path has the wisdom portion, which is right understanding and right thought. And you have the morality portion at the bottom, right speech, action, livelihood, and the mid portion, you have the right concentration. I mean, the samadhi portion, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. So total, you have 8. Okay, next. Okay, so starting from the first one, right view, means you need to understand the Four Noble Truths. You need to have a clear strategy, objective. Some people may not have right view or right understanding. They may come to Dhamma class or come to the temple, come to the religious service to have some other agenda. Maybe they just want to strike lottery. They are not interested in overcoming craving and stress. Right? They do not have this intention. So the view is very important. So why are we here for? Why are we practicing for? So it's very important to ask yourself this question. So one good way to develop right view is to reflect on the life story of the Buddha. Those who reflect on the story of the Buddha, what the Buddha went through. Why did he want to seek enlightenment? Why did he do this for? So once you have a good idea of the kind of life story of the Buddha, what's his objective, then you understand, okay, the teachings is to overcome craving. So once you have this in mind, then you can move on to the next one. Next slide. Okay, so right thought is the execution. So once you have a good kind of objective, the objective is to be a better person, to reduce craving, find calm, inner peace, then you need to start thinking, start your contemplation. So we call it right thought. So right thoughts is important. Some people, maybe they go for meditation, then some people will think, meditation is no thinking. No thinking, not true. If we try now, you sit there, we do an experiment, you sit there and don't think, do nothing. And then you watch your thoughts, see what happens. All the drama shows come up, right? So the mind very creative, better than the AI movie generator. All kinds of things come up. So the mind will naturally cling onto that show, be it a good show or a bad show, and you get affected. Right? So that is the suffering, self-created suffering. So in order to overcome this perpetual suffering, we need to kind of do something about it. So there's this thing called right thought. There's an intervention. So the thoughts of renunciation, thoughts of freedom from ill will, and thoughts of harmlessness. So today we are talking about non-violence. So these three is very, very relevant to the topic. So the right thoughts itself has two components on non-violence already. Free from ill will, free from harmlessness. So anybody know what's the opposite of ill will? Ill will means anger. Nobody. Opposite of ill will is loving kindness. And what is the opposite of harmlessness? If you want to harm somebody, means you want them to suffer, right? Then if you don't want them to suffer, you wish them free from suffering. So what is that? Compassion. So you have loving kindness and compassion. So normally in Buddhism or Mahayana Buddhism, they talk about 慈悲, loving kindness and compassion. So these two is very important. You got loving kindness and compassion, you kind of solve 2/3 of the problem. 2/3 of the problem. And then the first one is renunciation. Renunciation, some people think renunciation means you dress like this. Dress like this means renunciation. So earlier on, you see the video clip, you see people dress like this and they start punching each other. So renunciation here is a thought, it's not the physical ritual. You need to contemplate on something to renounce. So there's a whole list of reflections to cultivate renunciation. You can reflect on impermanence, non-self, suffering, generosity, whole list. So a lot of kind of reflections to cultivate renunciation. Okay, next. Okay, then we have the speech portion. So early on, we did the chanting of the precepts. So some people think, okay, I don't tell lies, but I can scold people. I can I can say divisive speech and idle chatter and stuff like that. No, huh? So if you can abstain from lying, very good. But if you want to talk about overall package, you want to have inner peace, then you must observe the four right speeches. Four right speeches. So the first one is this: abstain from lying. So for the Buddhists who take the five precepts, so that's the fourth precept lah. Then the next one, from divisive speech. Divisive speech means you go to group A and tell them that, okay, group B, they'll say something nasty about you, you know. Then you go to group B and tell them, hey, group A say something nasty about you. So actually group A and group B are neutral or friendly to each other. So by doing so, you cause division amongst them. So we call this divisive speech. Okay, then the third one, from abusive speech, that means all the harsh speech. It can be vulgar language, shouting, scolding. And the fourth one, idle chatter. Idle chatter means talking nonsense, lah. Saying something that's not beneficial, no use. I can be saying anything. The sun is round, the earth is round, the grass is green, the sky is blue. Nothing relevant to the talk. I can say anything factually true, like the encyclopedia. I can just read out everything, but not beneficial, as in not relevant to the talk. So we call this idle chatter. So by doing so, we call this making the mind scatter. Do you think by engaging in abusive speech, divisive speech, and idle chatter, does it make the mind more peaceful? No, right? It makes the mind more agitated. Right? So if you want to have overall peace, if you really have a right view, you want to have this relinquishment of this craving and whatever not, you want to have inner peace, then you need to observe the four right speeches, and not just don't tell lies. You don't tell lies, but I speak the truth. For example, I go to other people, hey, person B say something nasty about you. Yeah, I speak the truth. I'm speaking the truth, but you cause division. So we try not to do that. Okay, next. Okay, right action. So this is the rest of the precepts. Refrain from taking life, from stealing, from sexual misconduct. So taking life, very obvious, do not kill any living being, can be human or insect or animal. From stealing, so this also very clear cut, whatever is not yours, do not take. And next one, sexual misconduct means aside from the country's laws, that means do not cheat on your spouse. For those who are married, do not cheat on spouse, do not engage in another third-party affair. And for those who are single, do not engage in someone who is already engaged. So that is the refraining from sexual misconduct. Okay, next. Okay, any questions so far? If not, I'm moving too fast. Okay, no, I move on. Okay, right livelihood would mean honest livelihood. So if a person observe, that means if you can keep your five precepts while doing a job, that's generally quite okay. That's considered right livelihood. So to further add on to the right livelihood, we have the next slide. So five kind of trait that Buddha discourages a layperson from engaging. So that was 2,500 years ago. These are the 5 kind of traits to avoid. But maybe modern times, there are more kind of occupation. So if you think it's dishonest and harmful, then you don't go and take up the kind of occupation. So this 5 is avoid trading weapons, avoid trading human beings. It can be trafficking, human trafficking, and so on. Trading in meat, very interesting. So the Buddha is kind of indirectly promoting kind of vegetarianism. Okay, then the 4th one, business in intoxicants, business in poison. So these are the 5 kind of trade. So even though the person trading may not be killing, but the weapons and the poison will kill. Will end up in the wrong hands, will kill people. So we try to avoid in this trade. Okay, next. Okay, so the next one, right effort. Right effort is basically the repetition and continuation. So you see in this diagram, 2 for good and 2 for bad. So in Buddhism, we say there are 4 right efforts. So the bad one, we have 2. That means if a person have unwholesome states of mind, let's say you have greed or anger, then you try to overcome that. So that's the first right effort. And the second right effort is if you do not have unwholesome states of mind, if let's say you're not greedy, not angry, then very good, don't let it arise. So that is the second right effort. The third right effort is if you do not have wholesome qualities, things like loving kindness and compassion or renunciation, then you should go and cultivate them. You should develop them. Then the fourth right effort is if you already have loving kindness and compassion, your mind is in a peaceful state, very compassionate state, then you should maintain and perfect them. So this is the fourth right effort. So 2 for good, 2 for bad. So these are the 4 right efforts. So in short, you need to keep repeating. So some people go for Buddhist classes. They sit down there, the teacher teaching, I agree. So you generate a few thought moments of goodness. Once the class is over, then back to square one, everything gone. So we call this no effort, no right effort. So effort means you must maintain. So it's a bit like continuing the momentum. We call it rowing the boat. So in Buddhism, have this analogy of rowing the boat, crossing to the other shore. So a lot of times when we generate right thought, we pedal the boat once. And once we stop only, we start to relax, start to daydream, start to chill and do nothing, then we are basically leaving our fate to the currents of the ocean. So the currents could be all the habitual, can be the bad thoughts, and just drag us all over the place, and we'll forever never reach our destination. So the right effort here means continue the momentum, keep being consistent. Okay, next. Okay, then this right mindfulness. Again, I will briefly go through right mindfulness. If I were to talk about right mindfulness in detail, it might take 2 hours. So in short, right mindfulness means you need to observe these 4 foundations of mindfulness. Mindfulness of what? Mindful of the body, feelings, mind, and the Dhamma. So some people translate as phenomena, some people translate as mental qualities. So these are the 4 foundation of mindfulness. Not mindful of the weather, mindful of the stock market, mindful of the news. You can be mindful of a lot of things, but may not be the right kind of mindfulness. So the key word here is to observe, if you look at the underlined words, the phenomena of origination and passing away. That means you have to observe rising and passing of the body, feeling, mind, and the Dhamma till the point you can put aside greed and suffering. So this is in line with the first noble truth, right view. So nowadays, we have a lot of these modern circular mindfulness workshop. They just tell you, be aware, be aware. but they don't emphasize on developing this passion. They don't want you to observe rising and passing. They don't want you to contemplate rising and passing, and they don't want you to put aside greed. So especially in the corporate setting, they send you to mindfulness workshop. They don't want you to be contented. You're too contented, cannot make money for the company already. So you must maintain your greed. You can just go there, must learn to relax only. Then once you recharge, okay, then go back and make more money for the company, right? So this is the circular mindfulness courses. But in the Buddhist mindfulness, you need to reduce greed. So some people may be thinking, if I no more greed, how to perform in work. So some people think, if no more greed, then become monk already, become monk and nun. So in order to perform, there's this thing called positive desire, called chanda. So like if you aspire to be a better person, so that is a positive kind of desire, right effort. The negative kind of desire is called tanha, the Pali word tanha. So tanha is the excessive greed and anger that's mentioned in the earlier slides. Okay, so it's good to have positive intention, positive motivation that drive you to positive results. Okay, so these are the four foundations of mindfulness. And to further reiterate how important is to overcome these unwholesome qualities, we have this next slide. In the mindfulness of the mental qualities, which is the fourth foundation of mindfulness, there's this thing called the 5 hindrances. So the 5 hindrances are actually your greed, anger, sloth, drowsiness, restlessness, and this uncertainty, doubt. So these are the 5 hindrances. So the first one being mentioned here in the first paragraph, sensual desire, that's the first hindrance. And at the bottom of the paragraph, the bold words, so that's the other 4 hindrances. So total, there are 5 hindrances. So all these hindrances are actually the symptoms of our suffering. So if the mind still cling to greed, it means the mind still has suffering. The mind cling to anger, still has suffering. So the mind cling to drowsiness and sluggishness, that is also a suffering. The mind cling on to restlessness. The mind run all over the place. The mind cannot focus. That is also a suffering. The mind distracted, cannot focus. So that is also a suffering, a symptoms of suffering. The mind is uncertain, not sure of the Four Noble Truth. You're not sure whether the practice is correct or not. That means, or the practice you're doing is correct or not. So that is also a doubt, uncertainty. So there is also a hindrance. So it mentions here, there are the 4 right efforts again. You need to identify the hindrance. So that's the first paragraph. Whether is it present or not present. And the second point mentions how it arises, the cause of suffering, how it arises. And the third one, abandoning of that desire. So that's the third noble truth. And the fourth one, discerns how there's no future arising of this hindrance. So this one require effort, how to maintain and develop this right effort in accordance to the Four Noble Truth. So these are the Buddhist kind of right mindfulness. Not just observe. For some people, their mindfulness, you taste something, you must enjoy the taste. They slowly eat or slowly drink, then enjoy the taste. So enjoy the taste is promoting sensual desire. Whereas in the Buddhist reflection, you need to reflect, I eat this not for enjoyment, not for pleasure, but just for maintaining the body to practice only. So this is the difference. Okay, next. Okay, then the last of the Eightfold Path, right? Concentration, you have these things called the jhanas, the different levels of stillness. So the definition only mentions up to the 4th level of concentration. So anything excess like the 3, 6, 7, 8, so that's the extra. Okay, next. Okay, so I don't want to go through in detail, but the gist of it is if a person has peace of mind, they should have contentment, they should have certain happiness, certain peace, and they shouldn't resort to violence. Okay, next. Okay, so so in theory early, we talk about the root cause of all this suffering and violence is due to our excessive greed and anger. So I give an analogy of a seed of a plant. So imagine greed or anger is like a seed. Sometimes you might need other factors for this plant to grow, right? Like you need fertile soil, you need water, the nutrients, the sunlight, and so on. So the same thing, greed itself will not manifest into this degeneration of the Buddhist community unless you have certain supporting factors. So all the soil and the nutriment and the sunlight is actually these few things we mentioned here. Okay, so we have this first, we can divide this picture into two things, money and power. Money and power. So the finance and the social economic side is on the money. So for example, if you look at the diagram at the bottom, certain countries, maybe some Buddhist countries, they have this policy. They can take in people from a very young age to ordain. They provide free education and shelter, food, lodging, everything until they grow old. So sometimes, sometimes a family, due to poor economic kind of status, they might send a child to become a monastic. And a lot of times, or I wouldn't say all of them, quite a number of them may not have the intention of renunciation, may not want to renounce. So, so when they grow old, then you might see a lot of those things manifest. So like you see in the video earlier on. So that's the socio-economic status. And the link to the finance and politics. So sometimes certain country, there's certain policy where they have this expansionism policy. If you help their country to grow, can be financially, they might award and give certain monks promotion. So the monks, sometimes they want the promotion, they will try to make money. So for example, if I give Dhamma talk, I make $0. So you can't make money out of giving Dhamma talk. So one of the fastest way to make money is to solve the existential problems of the people. So what do people normally want? For example, if you go temple and pai, what do you normally wish for? What do you normally pray for? Anybody?
Good health.
Yeah, good health, yeah. That's all, good health.
A smooth going career.
Okay, career.
Yeah.
Yeah,
prosperous.
money, prosperous. Yeah, all those things. Yeah? So usually they call it material existential stuff. Sometimes can be essential, sometimes can be excessive. So sometimes in order to raise funds, some monastics may engage in other kind of practices that claim to fulfill those kinds of wishes. So for example, amulets or tattooing or I don't know, fortune telling, all those kind of stuff. So all this will actually raise a lot of money. Okay, and then the politics issue. So if a person gains certain status and power, they will gain certain control. So this will link to the left bottom, leadership. So if a person become a leader due to greed, do you think they'll end up as good leaders? No. So because in order to be a leader, you need to have followers also. So sometimes these positions will make them in charge of a certain province or certain, I would say, aspect of the region. And that particular province will have a number of devotees, Buddhist devotees. So like maybe in the future lessons, you might see how come certain monks are maybe anti certain religion. They might spread hate speech and so on because their position of authority might be threatened. Once they're given this certain position of power or status, they are afraid of these numbers, the number of Buddhists dwindling, and they will have no more power or no more influence over that region. So all this come to play. So if you look at the picture on the left, you might even see monks going to war. Do you know that Buddhist monks ever fought and go to war? So sometimes you might think Buddhism spread without any bloodshed. Not true. So future lessons will talk about this. So all these are kind of like intertwined. So from the money and power. Okay, next. Okay, so this is one example of the power structure or the hierarchy structure in, for example, one Buddhist country. So you have like the patriarchal council or the Sangha council of elders. Then they have certain committees and to oversee certain parts of the region, and they spread down and so on. So like in any organization, also the same thing, they have their own hierarchy and structure. Okay, next. Okay, so we're going to talk about who are the people they are subject to anger and who won't get angry. So these are the chart. So if you look at the left column, you see these four terms: stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. So the Pali term would be like stream entry would be Sotapanna, once returner is called the Sakadagami, non-returner is the Anagamin, and the fourth one is Arahant Singh. So in the Chinese, very easy, just say 一果罗汉, 二果罗汉, 三果罗汉, 四果罗汉, very easy. So Chinese easier. So these are the four stages of sainthood. So these are the real Sangha, the real Sangha. So the people here wearing robes, I represent the conventional Sangha. So people wearing robes may or may not be these four types of Sangha members. So when we do the chanting, the puja, for those who know the Pali puja, they talk about the four types of person or the 8 pairs of person. So they're mentioning this one. So this is the definition of a Sangha. So when a person bow or pay respects to a Sangha, they're paying respect to these four types of person. Stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. So you're actually not paying respect to me, you're actually paying respect to these ideal qualities. So this is to prevent cult worshipping. So if a person end up only, worship, for example, worship Pango, then can be very dangerous. So let's say I go astray, then the whole congregation also go astray. But if a person pay respect to these qualities, then you can at least tell right from wrong. So you need to have a very clear distinction. Ideal Sangha are actually these 4 states of mind: stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. So of course, you want to be more technical. There's a path and a fruition to stream entry, path and fruition to once returner, path and fruition to non-returner, and path and fruition to arahant. So that makes the 8 individuals. But we won't go to that at the moment. Okay, so we're going to talk about how holy are these people? So in the middle column, these are the defilements that they abandon. The defilements that they abandon. So a stream enterer will abandon identity view, doubt, and ritual attachment. So these are the defilements the stream enterer will overcome. But they haven't overcome greed and anger. So if you look at the bottom 4 and 5, once return and stream enterer haven't overcome greed and anger. So if you see some monastic get angry, that doesn't mean they may not be a saint. But a saint, a stream enterer, confirm will not break the precepts, at least the minimum 5 precepts. So this is same both ways for lay person or monastic. As long as a person becomes a stream enterer, their precepts will be pure. So we'll cover on the precept portion in future. Okay, so what are these 3 actually? So doubt will be doubt in the 4 noble truths. So a stream enterer will actually firsthand experience a taste of this happiness or the peace from relinquishment of craving. Not fully, but a taste. So they have a taste of this spiritual or inner kind of happiness that is free from greed or anger. So once they have this in mind, they have no more doubt that, okay, this is the direction they're going. So whatever they practice in future, they are sensitive to stress, If they practice wrongly, they will know there's some form of tension or stress. So this is stream enterer. So this they have no more doubt. Okay, then the next one, identity view and ritual attachment. So these 2 are kind of like, to me, is linked together. Linked together. So for example, if I view myself as Chinese ethnicity, then for Chinese, we will have Chinese kind of rituals. For example, Chinese New Year coming, then you must decorate your house with red color. You must put the calligraphy and prepare the ang pao and so on. So all these are the rituals associated with the identity. Rituals associated with identity. So if a person's identity you claim or you invest in a certain identity, let's say you are a soccer fan or football fan, then your ritual will be to watch the soccer match or to buy the jersey or support your particular club and so on. So these are the rituals associated with the identity. Or a person claim to be a fan of a certain, K-pop group or whatever, then your ritual will be to watch their shows and support their shows and so on. So these are ritual attachment associated with identity view. So if a person still cling on to the view, means they totally rely on this identity and their ritual for happiness. They have no other means of happiness already. That's you need to rely on greed and anger for that happiness. So for example, when COVID first happened, you have this circuit breaker or lockdown, everybody is stuck or isolated at home. A lot of things cannot do. A lot of people can get very upset. Some people even go suicidal. So that is, if a person do not have alternative source of happiness, they do not have this inner or spiritual happiness, then they might do something silly or drastic. So that is the 3 kinds of defilements. So if a person truly overcome these 3, then if let's say you have certain favorite activity that you cannot do, you might feel a bit upset, but not too drastic. Not too drastic. So that's the first 3 . Okay, so it's mentioned at the right column, a stream enterer maximum will reborn 7 more lifetimes. That's the maximum. So if they're more hardworking, can be 3 lifetimes, 2 lifetimes. Okay, and it is believed that a stream enterer onwards will not be reborn in the lower realm. So they won't be reborn as animal, won't be reborn as a ghost, won't be reborn as a hell being. So it'll be human or higher. So at least they'll be reborn as a human or a heavenly being. So similar for one's returner. So you might be wondering, stream enterer and one's returner the same, right? Okay, so one's returner will reduce sensual desire and ill will, reduce only, but haven't overcome. So that's some of the difference. Okay, so they'll come back, they'll be reborn one more time. Could be a human being or this kind of sensual deva realm. So that's the one's returner. And for non-returner, so non-returner usually associated very close to like an enlightened being already. So a non-returner will have no more greed and anger. Their mind is free from greed and anger. So this is like the one of the high scholar, considered one of the top performers, either arahant or non-returner. So the Buddha will normally mention if a person is successful in their practice, they will either become an arahant or a non-returner. So considered quite successful already. Yes, so sensual desire no more. They'll be reborn in this place called the pure abode. So there's a special realm in this, like a heaven, we call the Brahma worlds. It's called a pure abode. It's a special place reserved for them. And once they use up their lifespan in this pure abode, then they will no longer be in this samsara. So that is the non-returner. And for an arahant, they need to overcome 5 more things. Material rebirth last, immaterial rebirth last, conceit, restlessness, and ignorance. So these are the 5 higher factors to overcome. So you see over here, restlessness. So some people may think, when you sit down just now earlier, we did an experiment, right? The mind have a lot of stray thoughts. So some people think, or they come to my meditation class, they will say, Bante, I'm not suitable for meditation now. My mind like monkey, like that, run here, run there. The mind very restless, cannot meditate. I'm not suitable for meditation. Maybe I should just give up meditation. So this shows we still have room for improvement. If a person's mind do not have restlessness, that means you're enlightened. And then congratulations to you. You don't have to attend any more classes. Right? So if a person's mind still has restlessness, it means we still have some form of clinging. We cling to the stray thoughts, cling to the fantasies, cling to the worries. Right? All these are distractions. We cling to them. So we still have defilements. That means the mind have not overcome them. Okay, any questions before I move on? So an arahant is believed to be unbound right in this very lifetime. That means no more future rebirth. Okay, next slide. Okay, so there are teachings on karma also. So the Romanized version is K-A-R-M-A. The Pali version will be K-double-M-A. So make sure you spell it double M. You spell it one M, you have total different meaning. Okay, next. Okay, next slide. I need to keep clicking next. So there are teachings aside from the precepts to refrain us from harming people, which is the concept of karma. The concept of karma. We reap what we sow. So if a person harms other beings, they kill other beings, they'll end up with short lives. Either this lifetime or future lives. They end up having short lives. Or if they harm other people, they have sickly. They end up very sickly and not healthy. So in order to have a long life and a healthy kind of lifestyle, we talk about not killing or sometimes in the Mahayana tradition, have animal liberation. So all this will, as long as it prolongs other beings' life, it helps save other people. So that will contribute to the karma, good karma. Yeah. So we talk about good and bad karma. So if we harm people, it's called bad karmas. If we help others, that's good karmas. Okay, then for ugly and beautiful, if a person gets angry, they're temperamental, and that's the karmic consequence for being ugly. So we don't talk about future karma, we talk about right now. If we get angry, we frown, we get ugly immediately. We don't have to talk about future lifetime. But if you have loving kindness, you put on a smile, you look much better. So it's here and now kind of karma. Yeah? But even talk about future lifetime, you want to look more beautiful in the next life, then definitely that also works. Okay, then the same thing, influential or uninfluential, low and high status. So that is also got to do with the level of respect. So the person shows respect, they're humble, that will lead to them being influential in the next life. So that's part of the leadership course. The modern leadership courses, they tell you to be a good leader, first one needs to be a good follower. And vice versa, if a person is disrespectful, then they'll also lose influence. And the underlings will look up to them, hey, this person is setting the wrong example. So the same, or the next one, rich or poor, one will talk about being generous. So earlier on, we talked about thoughts of renunciation. So if a person practices generosity, practices giving, this will make their mind rich. So there's an inner kind of wealth. But you want to talk about material wealth, that's also possible. So in Buddhism, we do not pray for wealth. We do. So the Buddha actually taught how to be wealthy. The karmic route is to perform acts of generosity. You want to talk about the more mundane steps. The Buddha also taught investment, how to save, or what not to spend, what kind of vice activities not to engage in. So the Buddha actually taught that to businessmen. So it can be found in the Digha Janu Sutta. And same thing for being poor. If a person is very miser, very selfish, then that will lead to the poorness of the heart and also poorness in your material wealth. Okay, so that's the wealth part. Okay, next. Okay, so a person wants to be high or low in wisdom also depends on your actions. What kind of action leads to wisdom? So the Buddha mentions in this sutta, if a person asks questions. So if a person, later on we have the Q&A segment, maybe 9 o'clock, we set 9 o'clock for Q&A. So if you ask questions, you will clear your doubt. So when you clear your doubt, you'll gain wisdom. So that it will lead you to further growth, habitual kind of inquiry, kind of wisdom and discernment. But if a person don't ask questions, they always have doubt, they're too shy or too embarrassed to ask, then that will lead them to habitually holding back of this doubt. So they forever not learn. So later on, please ask questions. Okay, next. Okay, so what is the acts that lead one to the lower realm? So the lower realms are the hell beings, hell, the hungry ghosts, or the animal realm. So these are the undhamma conduct. 3, 4. Let me see. Okay, I will just read out everything. Householders. There are 3 sorts of undhamma conduct: dissonant conduct with the body, 4 sorts of andama conduct dissonant with the speech, and 3 sorts of andama conduct dissonant conduct with the mind. So this is very in line with the Noble Eightfold Path we've talked about. So the 3 andama conduct that's got to do with the body is the right action part. So if a person do not do the right action, there will be the wrong action. And the same thing for the speech, 4 right speeches. If you do the wrong speeches, there will be the 4 andama conducts. That's do the speech. And for the mind, so the mind, we have the 3 right thoughts. So if you do the opposite of 3 right thoughts, there will be the andama conduct that will lead one to the lower realms. Okay, next slide. Okay, so these are the 3 andama conduct. So basically, it's the total opposite of what we mentioned earlier. Okay, there's a case where a certain person takes life, is brutal, bloody-handed, devoted to killing and slaying, showing no mercy to living beings. So this is killing. So they kind of perform the act of killing or enjoys killing. Then the next one, he takes what is not given. He takes, in the manner of a thief, things in a village or in the wilderness that does not that belongs to others and have not been given by them. So basically taking what is not given. And the third kind of wrong conduct would be in this sensual or sexual misconduct. He gets sexually involved with those who are protected by their mothers, fathers, their brothers, their sisters, their relatives, or their dhamma. So basically the law, if a person is underaged, they still have a guardian or parent taking care of them, so do not engage in them. Those with husband, those who are married, or those with wives, those who entail punishments, or even those crowned with flowers by another man. So basically those who are engaged, do not engage in, or in this case, those who engage with those conditions are considered sexual misconduct. So this is the Buddhist definition. So if you do any of this, it's considered sexual misconduct. Okay, next slide. Okay, then this is the wrong speech. So first one is telling lies. So the Buddha gives a long example of telling lies. It's more like your honesty issue. So there's a case where a certain person engages in false speech, where it's called in a town, a meeting or group meeting, gathering of his relatives or guild or of the royalty, or in a court proceeding. So it can be an informal setting. So mentions here in a group meeting, can be a meeting of the relatives or your friends, or in a very formal setting, like in a court case or in an authority setting. Then if, let's say, has been asked a witness, come and tell me, good man or woman, what you know. If he or she doesn't know, he says, I know. If he does know, he says, I don't know. If he hasn't seen, he says, I have seen. If he has seen, he says, I haven't seen. So basically not telling the truth. Thus, he consciously tells lies for his own sake, or for the sake of another, or for the sake of a certain reward. So basically, if a person not honest, not telling the facts, then that would be, we say intentionally telling falsehood. So that would be committing this false speech. Okay, next. So the same thing, divisive speech. If a person heard whatever he heard over here, tells there to break those people apart from another people there, right? These people here, what he has heard there, he tells here to break these people apart from those people there. So basically, telling group A about group B about group A, breaking them apart. Thus, breaking apart those who are united and stirring up strife between those who have broken apart He loves factionalism, delights in factionalism, enjoys factionalism, speaks things that create factionalism. So they'll be creating divisive speech. Okay, next. Okay, then this is abusive speech. He speaks words that are harsh, cutting, bitter to others, abusive to others, provoking anger and destroying concentration. So it's called abusive speech. Then idle chatter would be, speaking out of season, speaks what isn't factual or what isn't accordance with the goal. So if it doesn't have objective, you just speak nonsense. The Dhamma, the Vinaya, words that are not worth treasuring. So that is idle chatter. So this is how there are 4 sorts of wrong speech, wrong conduct. Okay, next. Then the last one with the mind. So there are 3 wrong conducts with the mind. So the first one, if a person has covetousness, covet means greed, excessive greed. Then they have this thinking, the belongings of others, thinking, that what belongs to others will be mine. So you want other people's things. So over covetousness may lead to stealing. Okay, then the next one, bears ill will. So a person has this anger, ill will. They will be thinking, may these beings be killed or cut apart or crushed or destroyed, or may they not exist at all. So this is aversion, anger. So what leads to violence usually is these 2 things. Okay, then the third kind of wrong thought. Next slide. Okay, would be delusion. So that's the third kind of wrong kind of thought, wrong view. So what are kind of wrong view being mentioned here? There is nothing given, nothing offered, nothing sacrificed. There's no fruit or result in good or bad actions. So this context has nothing to do with the Heart Sutra. So in the Heart Sutra, they will tell you, know this, know that. Very different. Okay, so this one here means no acts of generosity, no acts of kindness, no reward, no good or bad karma. There is no this world, no next world. So they don't believe in afterlife. No mother, no father. That means no filial piety. No spontaneously reborn beings, no contemplatives or Brahmins who faring rightly and practicing rightly proclaim this world and the next after having directly known and realized it for themselves. So they believe maybe, who are you to teach me? Everybody is equal. There's no spiritually realized being to guide us. So we call this mundane wrong view. Mundane wrong view. So in Buddhism, there is mundane wrong view and a supramundane wrong view. So supramundane wrong view has to do with the 4 Noble Truths. In fact, a person may subscribe to these mundane wrong views, but can practice correctly also. So one example will be the Kalama Sutta. Kalama Sutta. So at the end of the Kalama Sutta, the Buddha is encouraging them to practice the 4 sublime states. And at the end, the Buddha mentioned, okay, if there is no such thing as afterlife, or rather, if there is such thing as afterlife, then good for you. You do all the good things, you never do anything harmful, then you'll be born in a good place. But if there's no such thing as an afterlife, it also doesn't matter. You've done something good. You have no more. If there's no such thing as rebirth, never mind. You've done something good for the world. So that's the first 2. But if there's such thing as good karma, then good for you. Then you have good reward. But if there's no such thing as karma, then also never mind. You've done something good. So these are at the end of the Kalama Sutta. So a person may subscribe to views such as no such thing as karma, no such thing as rebirth or afterlife, but they still can do good things. Yeah, so we call this mundane wrong view. Huh? Okay, next. Okay, so if a person want to end up in a higher realm, then just do the opposite of the wrong conduct. Huh? So what being mentioned in the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, so now it's 9 o'clock. I will stop my theoretical sharing. I'll do this in the next lesson. Okay, any questions on the floor? You can open the floor for Q&A.
If you have any question pertaining to today's topic to ask Bante, you may unmute yourself and ask your question or type your question in the chat box.
Those who want more wisdom can ask question. No question.
Yeah.
You can
Bante?
raise. Yeah.
Yeah, can I ask a question regarding karma? So
Mhm.
usually it is explained, like the Sufu will explain that karma is you plant a seed. They use the very scientific way of explaining. You plant a seed, then there's a sunshine, there's water and the good soil, and you get the reward.
Mm.
So could you help me to understand better with specific examples? Let's say what is exactly is that seed? So let's say I practice Nian Fo. Okay, every day
Okay.
I chant Amitabha and
Mm.
and I hope to get rich. Okay, so how does it work then on the seed, and what are specifically are those conditions that help this seed to grow?
Okay. So seeds will be a bit specific. So you must know every um, cause has a different effect. So a different seed will get different fruit. So if you plant the apple tree seed, you'll probably get an apple tree. If you plant a durian seed, you'll get a durian tree. So one thing to plant seed by Nian Fo is like, for example, maybe planting a durian seed. Then, but you want to get rich, is like planting a durian seed and wanting an apple tree. So different cause and different result. So like in most of the teachings, you want to get rich, you need to have the right causes. So in the karmic sense, the karmic seed for being rich is being generous.
Okay.
So that's the very specific cause. But a person very generous, they keep on giving, and then they broke like how? I never get rich. They give until broke. So we call it don't have the right conditions. Don't have the right water, don't have the right sunshine. So the other factors we include know how to save, know how to spend, how to be avoid vice activities, having wise friends, and so on. So there are many factors that lead to the product of being wealthy.
Okay. So Bante, meaning like if you are generous, so you plant in the seed, and by not engaging in the vice activities, it actually helps that seed to grow. Is that the condition? One of
And
the
then can you
conditions.
rephrase?
Yeah.
Can you
That
rephrase the
means
question?
meaning, yeah. So by being generous, that means the seed of being rich is planted.
Mm.
And then by avoiding friends with vice and knowing how to save, um, that will actually help this seed to grow. Are
Yes,
those the
correct.
conditions?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So chanting Amitabha doesn't help in any way to help the seed to grow.
Helps to calm the mind.
Oh,
Mm.
okay. Okay, can. Now I
Okay.
understand. Thank you.
Bante, there's one question here. Did Buddha life?
Okay, very good question. Right? So I did not live when the Buddha was alive, so I will not, like, on a first-hand kind of response tell you, but based on the scriptures, based on the teachings, and as a Buddhist out of faith, we believe that the Buddha is a perfect being. So the Buddha did not lie.
Bhante, can I ask two
Okay.
questions?
All
The
right.
first one is related to the 10 factors that you mentioned.
Mm.
So I think you mentioned for the stream enterer and the second one right after that, there's a ritual attachment that is
Yep.
being abandoned.
Mm.
So on the ritual attachment, I'd like to clarify a little bit. So does it mean that it is okay to do the ritual due to cultural norms? For example, Chinese New Year, you say
Mm.
新年快乐,恭喜发财, but is the key part is being attached to somebody not saying that to you and you don't see or feel the negative emotions coming up? Does it mean that way?
Yes, and also any ritual you perform, I will cross-reference with another sutta. What's his name? Wakali Esno, sorry. Forgotten the name, but never mind. So there's a ascetic that in the future lesson, I'll show that slide also. There's an ascetic that came up to the Buddha and asked the Buddha, India, so many ritual practices, which one is correct? So the Buddha said, any observance that you do, if the greed and anger increase, any unwholesome state of mind increase, then that is the wrong practice, the wrong observance. You should do something about it. But if your greed and anger reduce and your wholesome quality increase, then that's good for you. That's the good observance. So it can be any kind of observance or ritual.
Okay, get it.
Okay.
The second question is just now at the part whereby you talk about the 4 wrong speech actions towards the end of your presentation.
Yep.
There is one that says abusive speech, and there's a part that says destroying concentration. Can you provide an example or two that speaks specifically for this one?
Okay. So one good example is like shouting with anger, or saying something hurtful that will break a person's peace.
Oh, okay. So as long as it's not part of any of the 4 right speech, it's actually destroying concentration.
Yep.
Okay. Understand now. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, no problem. So it's 2 ways. First is your own guilt and remorse. So that will affect your own peace of mind or your concentration. So a person do a lot of this thing, then no, you cannot have peace of mind. So like I mentioned earlier on in the right speech, if a person just observe not telling lies but start abusive speech, then a bit hard to have concentration. And likewise for the receiving end, the recipient who received the abusive speech also will feel very upset or depressed even. So that's harm both ways. Okay, any other question?
Bhante, can I ask a question?
Okay.
The state of disappointment is under which category of the 3 poisons? Under greed or under anger?
Disappointment would be like the result of dukkha, suffering.
Okay, can a person be disappointed without feeling angry? Like, because there were people, some of them were saying like, disappointment is fall under either greed or anger. So you must have anger in you, then you feel disappointed.
So disappointment would be more on the first noble truth on the result. Yeah, so how you react with the result, whether you react with greed or anger is again up to the individual.
Okay.
So it's a perpetual cycle. You have someone maybe close to you depart from you, then you get disappointed, or somebody that you like, somebody that you like disappoint you, say something or do something that disappoint you. So that's the first noble truth.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
then
so a person can be disappointed without feeling angry. It has no link to anger.
Yeah, you can choose not to create greed or anger.
Okay. Thank you, Bante.
Okay, all right. So this only practice lah. Need to keep generating right thought until the greed and anger lessen. Okay,
And-
anyone else?
Okay, and Bante, how do you actually overcome disappointment? What's the most effective way of overcoming disappointment?
Overcoming disappointment, if there's okay, why we disappoint? Because we have unrealistic expectation. So if we practice some contentment or some reflection to reduce that expectation, then will help to reduce the disappointment. May or Esther or something? I see you talking. Okay, no. The rest, no issue.
Hi, Bante.
Okay. Hi, Jialing.
I want to ask just now the 10 undharma actions.
Okay.
You said that it will lead to hell,
Yeah, the lower realms. Yep.
including idle chatter.
Yeah, if a person does something unwholesome, is considered their mind is not enough merit, then yes.
Oh.
So the Buddha give example of the salt and water. If the person's merit is very little, for example, something positive, the good karma, like the merit is like plain water, and unwholesome karma is like salt. So if a person, let's say, engages in idle chatter, never harm anybody, right? By kind of make your mind agitated. Yeah? So it's a bit like adding a bit of salt into our water. So the water we have depends on the practitioner. If a person is very little merit, doesn't really practice any wholesome deeds, then their cup of water is very small. It's like a small teacup. So if you add a spoon, like a teaspoon of salt to that cup, and you stir, it will taste salty. Taste salty. But if a person has lots of merit, they do lots of good deeds, perform lots of good deeds, do a lot of meditation, chanting, all kinds of good deeds, keep doing. So the Buddha give example of the river Ganges. Imagine the whole river full of water, like plain water. Then if you do one small unwholesome act, let's say idle chatter, and you add one small spoonful inside, then you stir, you won't taste anything. Like it doesn't taste anything at all. So this is the difference. So the unwholesome act will be so diluted, it will become negligible. And also this one is, I know it's a very good question because it's relevant in daily life. Most people engage in some kind of conversation. So if your objective is to break the ice, more for socializing, to understand the person better, that's fine. You have some clear objective. So idle chat will mean you have no objective and just talk lah. Just talk lah. Like crazy person, you just talk and talk lah. The mouth got diarrhea, then that's idle chatter.
Yeah. But can I further clarify? So let's say for 忏悔, so is it like the negative karma actually is still there? It's just that we realize the mistake, then we stop and then do more good things. It's like the salt is still there. It's not like the salt disappear.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you kind of dilute it. Yeah, when you think of something more wholesome to overcome it. Yeah, so the confession or asking forgiveness, you must know to do it correctly. If you keep on overdoing it, you feel remorseful. You keep on replaying, you're like adding more salt.
Oh, okay.
So the idea of this identifying the problem and confession is to acknowledge the problem and then you work to resolve the problem.
Okay. And just curious for the, let's say, the non-returner and stream enterer, because they don't have identity view, right? So the example you give just now is like, let's say Chinese New Year, usual people is we give ang pao, all this. So let's say the person is a stream enterer or non-returner. Do they, like, because of the environment, do they still like so-called follow the culture and do but without attachment, or is that just curious, like, or how they live?
Yeah, all activities are in a way a kind of ritual, like brushing our teeth, how we dress up, all these we have certain pattern because we do it over and over again. So it's a kind of like a ritual. Yeah. So the idea is whatever ritual you engage in, like what you mentioned, we don't overdo it out of greed or anger.
As long as there's no greed and anger to the action.
Yeah, that means we need the right kind of understanding, right kind of motivation before we carry them out.
Okay, thank you, Bhante.
Okay, no problem. So I give an example, like for Chinese New Year, let's say for couples want to give out ang pao, like you mentioned, the red packet. If a person's mind is, let's say, for a selfish mind, yeah, I give the ang pao, how much will my child receive back? How much profit and loss? You think of this kind of thing, then it will be harmful, make the mind selfish and stingy. But let's say you give, you're like, hey, once a year, and haven't seen this relative for a long time, then you give out joy, you wish them kwai you really wish them happiness and joy. Then that is the more towards the right frame of mind.
Okay, so it's not like do the action or don't do the action. It's more like the intention and the
intention,
thoughts.
yes. As long as it leads to wholesomeness, then then the ritual doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, anything else? So we'll talk more on the rituals and acts more in future lessons. So in this whole series, these 8 lessons will cover, besides the ethics, we'll talk about some of the psychoanalytical processes of conflict and violence. We'll talk about even assertiveness or even self-defense, this kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay, any other question?
Yeah, one more question, Bhante. Like recent news, a lot of like stabbing people with knife
Okay.
case. So sometimes when we read the news, I mean for myself, sometimes I also feel like a bit unsafe or worry. Although I remind myself that but we cannot control others, we control ourselves. Like we think of kindness, compassion. Like, is there anything else like we can do? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the internal problem and external problem. So internal problem would be our state of mind. We cultivate loving kindness, thoughts of goodwill, reduce unwholesomeness, reduce conflict. Then the external one would be, like we mentioned, the right speech, not to provoke, not to create more divisiveness, not to promote hate speech and stuff like that. So 2 ways, internal and external.
Yeah, in a way also, external is more like don't create the condition for others to get angry and then do something wrong.
Yeah, that also.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
I think there's one question in the chat box.
So I read out. How can I practice equanimity when faced with financial struggles? And what if ideally we would want to do a good and right livelihood, but at times we are stuck in an industry that is negative, but we will need to stay for family reasons or being forced to stay due to lack of qualifications, etc. Yeah, so I'll answer the second question first. So if a person is in a financial difficulty and they're in livelihood, which you think is not the honest livelihood or not the right kind of livelihood, you need to do your own weighing, weigh the pros and cons. Once there's opportunity to leave, by all means leave. But if you really have no choice, if you think the livelihood is criminal, please don't do it in the first place. But if, let's say, it's legal, but but in the Buddhist context, it's a wrong livelihood. For example, trading in arms. Let's say it's a legal industry, but trading in arms lead to more warfare. You want to leave, then you need to find the right opportunity, right time. Let's say the economy is not very good now, but if once there's opportunity, you find there's other job opportunities which are more wholesome in a Buddhist sense, and by all means, and you leave. And the first question, practicing equanimity when facing struggle. This one need lots of practice, need to keep generating right thought all the time. Not easy. So one of the recommendations, you can take up meditation classes. So that would be one of the ways to start off, is more of like internal kind of investment for your mental resilience. Okay, then the second question here, somebody type another one. If we see monks or nuns who don't practice correctly, how to avoid getting angry at these situations? Okay, so again, first we look both ways. Like for example, like in the temple which I'm staying, or in most temples, there's a lot of visiting monks, transiting monks. So we see all kinds of patterns. So first, don't be too judgmental. Like first and foremost, like we look at the chart, only non-returner onwards will have no anger, no greed or anger. So sometimes, a stream enterer or this once returner may, say something that it may not be seem correct, or sometimes it's our own perception. They may not have the ill intention, but we perceive it wrongly. We may perceive it wrongly. So we need to check both ways. So it's don't be too quick to judge. But if it's outright, you see something outright wrong, like they do drugs or drink alcohol or steal something or do those very obvious something criminal, there's a hotline. There's a hotline. If you see something, some criminal thing going on, there's a hotline. You can call the police and so on. So in Thailand, there's like a religious department or for police, monk police. So they'll call that hotline, then that authorities will come and deal with the monks over there. So in future lessons, we'll talk more on that. So in Singapore, there's this bogus monks issue. So I think it's the same thing. And the Singapore Buddhist Federation issued a statement. You see monks collecting money in the alms bowl and call the police straight away, that kind of stuff. So that's their spokesperson, their statement. But if it were me, I would first ask that person, are you really a monk in the first place? Because sometimes they might not be bogus monks. So you need to ask whether they're monks in the first place. If they're not, they shy away, they run away, and then probably that's the bogus monk.